I'll tell you, what a kickoff, because we could talk some Jeremy Swayman news, or lack thereof, after today's presser
Yeah.
with Don Sweeney. Boy, it was a whirlwind. Late last night, looked like it might be a deal done by the time training camp started at noon. And then there was a report from Courtney Cox of WEEI that there was a deal, in fact, done, and she thought that would be actually announced today. And then Rich Keefe, who is on right after her, said there wasn't a deal done and that the Bruins didn't want to go north of $8 million. And lo and behold, Scoops Keefe is right again.
Yeah.
And no deal. And Don Sweeney says that not only is there no deal, but they're going to, that they are looking to make a deal by the December 1 deadline.
He'll get finished by December 1st, by the December 1st deadline. It'll be done by then. So that's great news to all Bruins fans.
Sure.
Hopefully it's done much, much, much sooner than that. So we don't have to, don't have to wait for this to happen. But that's concerning because you're supposed to be in playoff position by Thanksgiving. And the last time I checked, December 1st is after Thanksgiving. So that doesn't bode well for the Bruins if they're without their all-star goalie until December. So something needs to happen much, much sooner than that. If the Bruins want to have any kind of a chance this year to play any kind of meaningful hockey later in the season.
I'm going to say this right now. Smitty, our very own Smitty, is maybe Nostradamus, because you've been saying this literally like 15 episodes ago.
Yeah,
that this was a little bit unnerving, and you're a little nervous about it. And I think that I was too. And the reason is, and I know that David Pastrnak went right up to the end of the wire to sign a deal. But this was different because of the hard feelings that Swayman had.
Yeah.
So Pastrnak really never had any hard feelings. It was just kind of, we were just going back and forth and getting it done. Swayman had hard feelings. So that's what always was in the back of my head.
Sure. He's always been put off by the arbitration thing. He didn't like that. He still brings it up. He was still bringing it up, last month when they were talking about the contract. It's still under his skin, the whole thing. And I understand it from both sides. I understand he's pissed that they went to arbitration, and the bad parts about his game were thrown out there, and he had to hear that stuff. And I understand from the Bruins side, look, they didn't have any money last year. He should have known that. Swayman's camp should have known that. And, it was kind of a disaster the way it all unfolded, because Swayman wanted his money. The Bruins didn't have any money to give, so they had to fight for it in arbitration. Then there's hard feelings on both sides. And now you're at a point where both sides are waiting for the other one to blink when it comes to what kind of contract he's going to sign long-term. Now, they all saying the right things. Everybody wants him to be here. He wants to be here. He wants to sign a long-term deal. We've all heard all that stuff, and that's great. We all want him to be here. The fans want him. Everybody wants him to be here. Everybody, is excited about his potential going forward. But right now, there's no deal done. And he's just sitting on the sidelines and waiting until the Bruins either get to his number or, he caves and signs. It's still kind of, waiting to see who's going to blink first.
I'm at a point now where I'm sort of on the side of the Bruins now, and I've been turning the last couple of weeks, and now I'm really behind the Bruins. The issue I have now, in hindsight, is that Don Sweeney and the Bruins should have taken that arbitration deal and taken the 2-year deal on that. Because if they did, and I know why they didn't, they tried to do Swayman a solid and tried to smooth it over a little bit because they knew he was upset about arbitration. But if they took the 2 years at 3.5, then they would have said, look, you're going to make 3.5 this year. with Allmark. And then the next year we have to move on from Allmark. You'll be the guy at another $3.5 million. And then the next year, which is next off season, then we'll go with the big multi-year contract and we'll have to pay you and so forth. But instead, they tried to do him a solid by only going 1 year. Then they trade the other guy to show that Swayman that he's the guy. And then they don't go to arbitration again. So they did him like 3 solids.
Mm-hmm.
And then he still stuck it in their back. So I think when you saw it today from Sweeney he's pissed that he kind of did the good faith thing. And Swayman now didn't react well to that and is still digging his heels in and trying to get the biggest deal he can. And I think that pisses Sweeney off. And if Sweeney learns anything from this, is to never give all that leverage away to a player. Just never.
I mean, I 100% agree. I think giving the leverage away was a mistake. They should have got the Swayman deal done before they traded Allmark. There was really no rush to trade Allmark if you weren't going to get that much of a cap savings. You could have just gone into the season with the 2 of those guys and played it out. But yeah, he gave the leverage away, and now Swayman's holding them over a barrel with it.
Yeah, he is. And see, that's if I think in hindsight, I think if Sweeney were to do it again, he would have said, we're going to take the 2 years in the arbitration. And then we're going to, after the second year, then Swayman has that full year where he's the guy, which would have been this season at $3.5 million, and then show that he can do it. And then if he does it, then bang, 8 times 9 or whatever next year. Fine. But I think that's where the misplay was. And it's easy to go back and say, you should have done it this way. And I get why the Bruins did it that way. But any people out there who are blaming Sweeney for this, I blame Sweeney for that. I don't blame Sweeney for not giving him, 9.5, whatever it is, because it's obvious that that's what he wants. I am not blaming him for not doing that. So I blame Swayman for this whole thing after the fact.
Yeah,
I do.
I blame Swayman for the way the contract thing has been drawn out. I don't blame Sweeney. I think the Bruins should stick to their guns as far as that goes. He hasn't proven that he can be a number 1 in a full regular season yet. Mm-hmm. So you can't commit 8 years, 8.5, 9, 9.5, 10 million, whatever he's looking for, to a guy who's never proven that he can play more than 50 games in a season. You just can't do it. So I don't fault Sweeney there. I do fault him with the giving away of the leverage. So, early on, I would say it was his fault, and now I would say it's Swayman's fault. So, there's blame to go around on both sides. So how about this? Let's get a fucking deal done. Sorry, John. Get a deal done, and let's play hockey.
Right. And
that's, on ice starts tomorrow, Thursday. So let's get everybody in camp and let's play hockey.
What do you think the odds are that a deal doesn't get done and he does get traded?
Like under 10%.
Under 10%. So you think that they're really going to get a deal done? So what is the difference? What is the difference then? When will then be now? Like in Spaceballs. What's the difference then to now?
Of what?
Of like why what would change?
Why will the deal get done?
Yes,
because the regular season is coming. So okay. I can't believe that he would want to sit out regular season games. Maybe he will. I mean, his agent is kind of a hard ass. I mean, he wanted William Nylander to sit out in a season, and Nylander came back to him and said, at the end, let's get a deal done. Mm-hmm. So hopefully Swayman will do that. I can't imagine that he would want to sit out games, but maybe he does. Maybe he waits until the very last minute and signs sometime in December. Or the Bruins at that point are out of the playoffs and they trade him before the December 1 deadline.
Right.
But to me, I feel like, there's enough common ground, enough history that I feel like it will get done eventually It sounds like both sides want that. That could just be, media talk, media speak. Who knows? But I really do believe in my heart of hearts that it will eventually get done.
So what do you
Hopefully
think that? So
before
what do
the
you
regular
think the
season.
number's going to be? What do you think? Is it going to be still a long-term deal? I mean, see, what I don't understand is just how fractured this is, because it seems to be more fractured than we thought. Like, it seems to be kind of worse than we thought. Like, people were always saying, like, oh, it's going to get done, it's going to get
Mhm.
done, no big deal. Even today, like, oh, it's going to get done, stop worrying about it, stop. Ty Anderson's been saying that from day one, like, it's going to get done, stop with your theatrics and your dramatics. But I just think it's pretty fractured right now. Like, Sweeney seemed really pissed today in the press conference, and then he was after spitting chicklets about what he says is an erroneous report that he never returned calls for 3 weeks or whatever it was. So it just seems like though he was very agitated by the whole thing, and I think that he probably feels he got a little bit backstabbed by the agent and the player, um, because he probably thought that there was a sort of a gentlemanly deal. Like, he probably thought the number was different than they were going to come at, and I think he's kind of been taken aback by it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right to a certain degree. He might have been blindsided a little bit by what what their ask was. And Dennis says 8 times 8.5 is generous for him. I would agree with that, Dennis, but I also think that I feel like they're probably going to come in somewhere right around there. There were reports today that the Bruins didn't want to go over 8. Swayman clearly asking for McAvoy money, so that's 9.5. I feel like, and I said it all along, even in the summer, it was probably going to be 8 times 8.5, and I'll stick with that. I think it's going to be somewhere right in there, anywhere from 8 to 8.5 to. I don't see it getting as high as 9, but somewhere in the 8 to 8.5 range, over 8 years, or like you said, Maddie, there's a distinct possibility that Swayman could want short-term deal. They sign something short-term, and then he looks to cash in, in 3 or 4 years when the cap really goes up. And if he establishes himself as a clear number one, then maybe he's looking at, north of 10 million at that point.
Yeah, that's the play I would do. I mean, I would bet on yourself if I was him. And Louis Gross also represented Torrey Krug in that fiasco,
Yes.
where Krug wanted 6.5 or whatever it was, and the Bruins pulled their offer off the table, and then just sort of let Krug walk. And of course, it was a great move. I mean, Krug can maybe not be able to play again. So there wasn't, and didn't really had one good year, and then has declined since. And we kind of saw the handwriting on the wall there. So that was a smart move that they didn't make in trying to re-sign him. So that was good. And I think, look, I think that Sweeney, I'm not the biggest Sweeney guy. So it's not like I'm up here like pounding my fist saying, give Sweeney all the respect in the world. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think that Sweeney made a mistake by not. I mean, I would have just taken the 2 years in arbitration, and I would have just said, hey, this is the plan, and this is what it is, because he's pissed anyway. Like, was he going to be more pissed? Like,
Yeah.
he's pissed anyway. So just do what's right for the team and do the 2 years on that arbitration deal. You get a real steal this year. You get $5 million extra more. You would have been $5 million under the cap with Swayman on the team right now. But instead, now you're probably going to be right up against the cap after you sign him. And I just think Sweeney would do it. If he would do it again, he would go right all the way back to that arbitration deal and say 2 years. And I think that that's a learning experience for him, because he had an agitated player, and I think he underestimated how agitated he was. Plus the agent, he should know the agent.
Yeah.
With the crew history, he should know the agent. So that's kind of the deal. We had some other comments on it. Dennis said that Bruins didn't even give Rask that. Rass was making $7 million when, that was pretty good money then.
Yes.
And he was a top 5 goalie for the decade. I don't care what ESPN or NHL Network or anybody else says. He was.
Mhm.
And then Shaz Diet says he can't believe that he'd want to sit out games. And I don't think he does, but I think he will. And I think he'll go right to December 1st. Like, I just have this bad feeling that he is going to call the Bruins bluff and sort of see if they'll trade him. And I don't think he'd be totally bent out of shape if they did.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. All that talk has been that they're both interested to get a deal done.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see. We'll see how much he and how far he digs his heels in, and if his agent will, hold him out of games during the regular season. As a player, to me, you want to play games. So I feel like at some point that has to take precedence. You're a hockey player. That's what you do. So you're gonna watch games. Like, that just doesn't seem to me like it would be productive for him. And then you get the reputation around the league of a guy who's willing to hold out.
Right.
Like, if you get traded to another team, they're going to be leery of you. Like,
Sure.
They're going to say, well, yeah, you mean you held out against the Bruins, who Don Sweeney did things the right way, tried to do you a solid, and you still held out. When we get into contract negotiations with you, how's it going to go for us?
Right.
So I feel like it will happen before regular season games are played, and it should. Whether that's in a contract with the Bruins or a trade, I still think it's a contract with the Bruins, but a trade is still, a small possibility, I think.
Yeah, and I do too. What do you think about the players? I mean, Brad Marchand made some sort of comments about himself when he's talking about negotiations within the media, and said that was out of respect for the team and the player, to keep that in house and so forth. So people didn't know if he was kind of saying that about Swayman or if that was a sort of a direct thing with Swayman. Swayman was around Warrior Ice Arena for the captain's practice, so I'm sure he's talking to teammates. And Marchand's a guy, as the captain, who's taken less money, like who's taken friendly deals, and followed the Zdeno Chara, Patrice Bergeron method of, let's do what's best for the team so we can have money to get other players and so forth. So what do you think? I mean, do you think the players kind of look at this now as like, you're kind of fucking our season up, right?
I mean, to a certain extent, I think they do. But at the same time, I think they all realize that it's a business. And then, they don't begrudge another guy trying to get his money, is usually what it comes down to in pro sports, I feel like.
Right. Yeah.
But I do think that Marchand comment was a shot at Swayman, 100%.
I think it was.
And I feel
he
like
was pretty pointed when he said it. Like,
I feel like he thought it was maybe more at his agent than Swayman himself.
Right.
With some of the comments in the media and some of the reports that have been out there. So I feel like the teammates may be irked by it, but I think overall they're probably supportive of him trying to get his money.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of setting a bar here for other goalies, and Igor Shesterkin like watches this daily, I'm sure. And he's like, I mean, there's reports that he might look for $12 million a year.
Yeah.
That I saw the other day. Like, he would set the new bar once Swayman is signed. So Ranger fans are like scared to death of that deal coming down pretty soon. So right now it's just sort of a waiting game. And now you look at, Eunice Corposalo, and now Brandon Bussey kind of gets thrown into the mix here. Like, Bussey had a pretty good year last year. There were times where he kind of dipped, and DiPietro's a little bit better, and they went back and forth with it. And Bussey certainly seems to be capable of being a decent backup, or at least given a shot to do that. But Corposalo's the real X factor here. He wasn't very good toward the end of his career with Ottawa, and of course, Bob Essenza will be trying to help fix him and so forth. But this is kind of a lot thrown into his basket here. And if the team starts out, here's the big thing. In the last 15 years, the goaltending has really bailed this team out several times. They've won games they shouldn't have because of great goaltending. Like, not good, great goaltending. So if they aren't getting that, do they win as many games?
No. Simple
They
answer. No. Their goaltending has been one of the reasons they've been so good for so long. They went from Thomas, to Rask to Swayman and Ullmark. Like they've had really, really good goaltending for a lot of years now in a row. And, if you look around the league and you see, bad teams, it's usually bad goaltending that goes along with it. So as much as I love Bob Essenza and goalie Bob and all he can do, and hopefully he can work some miracles with Korpisalo and get him straightened out. Otherwise, their Bruins goaltending is a huge question mark. Huge question.
Of course it is.
Yeah. And especially if Swayman's holding out until, December, then it's even worse. Like if you have to go with two guys who have basically never been Bruins before, one of them hasn't been in the NHL really, and the other guy's coming off a terrible season, you're a worse team than you were last year. I mean, we've talked about that on the last episode. Where are you? Is this Bruins team better than last year's team? If your goaltending is Korpisalo and Bussy, the answer is no. You're not as good.
Well, as Kevin Paul DuPont posted the other day, this is the first time since 1980 that the Bruins go into a season with two goalies who haven't played a game for them yet. And that was Jim Craig and Rogie Vachon in 1980. That team started 3-9-3.
Yeah,
that's not good. This isn't good. No, this isn't good. So I don't know. I mean, I think that the team is pretty good. I think they should win some games. They should stem the tide for a bit. But then the other thing is, when Swayman finally does come in, there's always a chance for injury. He can't go out and play actual hockey. Those quick reflex saves and the intensity and the traffic in front of the net. You can't replicate that any time else. Like you can't replicate that at Waltham High School, like on a Friday afternoon, because you can't be with a team. Like you can't do that. Like you just can't do it. So this is where it's really, there's so many factors that go into it. It's not just, okay, when he signs, it's great. Well, not really, because now he's not in game shape.
Right.
And now it's sort of and then you come in, and what if the other guy's playing pretty well? And now you come in, okay, Swayman, now it's your job making $8.5 million a year. And the other guy's playing really, really well. So it could ruin some chemistry. There's so many things that could happen. It's just not good. It just sort of starts the season off with, just like you said, question marks and sort of imbalance, and a lot of just people not knowing.
There's turmoil, there's unknowns, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong or have the potential to go wrong or blow up in their face. What if Swayman signs? Korpisalo's playing well, Bussy's playing well. Swayman signs, they send Bussy down, and Swayman comes in now with this big contract, and his first few games he's bad because he's
not very good. Yeah.
So now he's going to be hearing it from the fans. You think the fans are going to give him a free ride after holding out and signing for a big contract? He better come in and be fucking nails. Sorry, John. Be ready to go right away, or the fans are going to turn on him quickly. Some already have. Some have already said he's not worth the money. Send him out of town. I don't want him.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few fans who say trade him now.
I don't want him anymore. Tell you what, Bruins, Boston people and Bruins fans especially are a loyal bunch.
Yeah, they are.
Fans will stick with the team through thick and thin, through everything. But I tell you, if a player disrespects the team, or is like, I don't want to be part of the team, or is holding out, staying away from the team, they will turn on you in a second.
They will.
And you better be good when you come back. Right. If you're going to hold out and create all the distractions and do all this other stuff that keeps you away from the team and keeps the team from winning games, you better be sensational when you come back.
Oh,
You
he's going
gotta
to
be.
hear it.
Or
Yeah,
he's gonna hear it.
He's going to hear it. He's going to hear it big time. Yeah, he's going to hear it big time. And there's there's no better example of we root for the uniform than Bruins fans. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's all about the uniform. You know, you can love a player, but once he's gone, no one cares anymore. Like, so this is, if he's out of sight, out of mind, or if he disrupts, like you said, disrupts what's happening, they just won't. They know they're gonna support the team first and foremost,
Mhm.
and that's just the way it is.